Misunderstanding is resetting. The book world has been reset successfully. Role to play. The dominant character in Misunderstanding. The plot has been implanted in the brain. Please complete the role-playing of the plot while the readers are reading. You can check the top 10 popular comments from readers every week. A cold mechanical voice rang out. I was sitting in the spacious and bright office on the top floor of the building, leaning back in the chair to relieve the dull pain in my head caused by the massive plot being stuffed into it. I closed my eyes and emptied my mind, no longer thinking about the same plot that I had performed tens of millions of times. All readers have no idea that whenever they open a book at the same time, the world in the book starts to operate, and the main characters begin to perform the supposed plot. Now, with the plot reset in operation, quite a few readers have opened the book Misunderstanding again. And as the dominant character in Misunderstanding, I was lucky enough to awaken during the 10 millionth performance. Then, after the 20 millionth performance, I got a glimpse of the comments from the readers in the world behind the book. After that, before the 30 millionth performance started, I was detected by the system, which tried to erase my memory. Fortunately, I had already prepared and set a checkpoint for myself. I told myself, never forget that I'm just a character in a book. The dull pain gradually disappeared. I looked into the void and let out a sigh. I really don't understand what's so appealing about this book. It's a modern Danmei novel with a suffering bottom character. As the dominant character, I'm definitely not a nice guy. When I was a kid, I ran away from home to escape my father's controlling nature. That gave kidnappers the chance to seize me. They took me to a small dark room in the outskirts. Since my father refused to pay the ransom, I got beaten up badly. While I was unconscious, I vaguely saw a figure standing in front of me. From then on, that figure became my first true love in my heart. When I woke up again, I was already in the hospital, and the next time I met my first true love was in high school. But I was so blind that I mistook Matthew, William's younger brother, for my first true love, and that's how Misunderstandings started. After that, there were endless cliched plots. I thought William was secretly bullying Matthew, so I was always mean to him, showing my discontent. William liked me. I liked the wrongly identified first true love Matthew, and Matthew had someone else he liked in his heart. Eventually, we managed to confess and get together. Matthew had someone he liked in his heart, and after much difficulty, they confessed their feelings and got together. So, feeling sad and lonely, I settled for William and married him. After bringing him home, I was cold and distant to punish him, until William couldn't stand it and ran away. Only then did I realize that the person I truly loved was William. The original misidentification was also, by some strange coincidence, cleared up, and then I started the so-called chasing my wife like crazy process. But I really deserved it. It was okay to just have misunderstandings and be verbally cold in the early stage. But it was really cruel to bring him home and torture him physically and mentally in the later stage. I really don't understand why such a scumbag protagonist like me could be the lead. And I also don't understand why readers like this book. What's so interesting about such a cliché, mindless and abusive plot? Well, now the book has been reset, and I have to act out this stupid plot again. Knock, knock, knock. While I was lost in thought, there came a knock on the office door. Come in. I sat up straight and said in a solemn voice with a poker face. James pushed the door open, stepped aside, and ushered the person behind him in. He said in a gentle voice, Mr. Henry, Mr. William is here. Hearing this, I looked over and was stunned at the sight. The person in front of me had a light-colored top tucked into his beautiful waist. His well-hanging suit pants made his legs look long and handsome. His beige windbreaker was nipped in at the waist just right, and his fingertips holding the lunchbox were white and smooth. His delicate and handsome face was as stunning as it had been in tens of millions of previous appearances. But later, this beautiful face would become lifeless, like a soulless puppet. William, I murmured his name, lost in a daze. After bringing the person in, James left tactfully, closing the door behind him. Yesterday was my wedding banquet with William. Everyone in the group knew about it. Today is the second day after the wedding. William came to the company to visit with a lunchbox. You don't even need to think to know what's going on. The door closed silently, and William stood there, looking at a loss. Seeing that I didn't say anything, After a moment of silence, he broke the silence first. Last night, was there an urgent matter at the company? I came to check on you. According to the plot, I didn't marry my first true love. Instead, Matthew married him. On our wedding night, I found an excuse and escaped back to the company to be alone. And William had no idea why I left. He simply thought there was a real emergency at the company. Cursing myself as a jerk in my heart, I was about to respond. Then the persistent mechanical voice suddenly rang out. Please complete the performance. Scold the protagonist to make him recognize his identity. Line performance. William, recognize your identity. There's no need to do these things to please me. As if afraid that I would deviate from the plot. After erasing my memory, the system, to ensure everything was foolproof, had never turned off the newbie process guidance. With a deep and helpless look, I lingered my eyes on William. Suddenly, I felt a bit rebellious and tentatively said, "What are you standing there for? Sit down." 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds. Words that had nothing to do with the plot actually didn't get a warning. And upon hearing my words, William uncomfortably rubbed the handle of the lunchbox. As he moved, his straight and beautiful legs revealed his ankles, as if I could see the red marks I would leave on them in the future. He pretended to be calm and sat gingerly on the black soft sofa, placed the lunchbox on the table, and straightened his back. William, Although I was surprised that the system didn't give an audible warning, I still started the plot as usual. Recognize your own identity. There's no need to do these things to please me. After saying that, to test if I could add irrelevant words to the lines, I looked straight at his flustered eyes and simply added, "We're husbands." In the office, the atmosphere froze. I waited for a good while, but didn't hear the system's warning sound. I raised an eyebrow. Did this mean there was a bug in the plot enactment? As long as I completed the line's enactment, could I improvise with other words freely? Could I finally stop being a dedicated scumbag boyfriend? It seemed I had been too honest before. The hand that had pinched the chin in tens of millions of scenes was unbearably sore. The countless scenes of uttering harsh words made me feel sick and numb. Plus, I had to put on a cold face every morning to maintain my character. After tens of millions of times, I was so diligent that I didn't dare to slack off even a bit. Thinking about the feasibility of testing out the plot bug now, I sat in the chair, feeling a bit secretly pleased. So, I completely failed to notice William's odd behavior in a timely manner. The tip of his ear, which was as smooth and delicate as porcelain, turned a bit red. The corner of his mouth curved into a barely noticeable pixel-like smile, and he murmured affectionately, "Honey." Ahem. Realizing that there were still people in the office, I cleared my throat awkwardly. My eyes glanced at the lunchbox on the table, and I casually asked, "Have you eaten?" William looked up and suddenly met my eyes. He immediately avoided my gaze, lowered his eyes, and shook his head. Not yet. I was well aware of his reluctance to look at me. In the plot setting, William had been secretly in love with me since high school. Up to now, it had been 10 years. I got up from the office chair and walked leisurely to the sofa and sat down. "Let's eat together," he softly replied with an placed his hand on the lunchbox. He opened it and set it up neatly. My eyes were involuntarily drawn to those long, fair fingers. I even thought they would be nice to play with in the palm of my hand. William focused intently on setting things up, then took out the chopsticks and handed them to me. I took the chopsticks, picked up a piece of sweet and sour spare ribs and put it in his bowl. "Eat yours. Don't worry about me." Hearing this, his hand paused, and he remained silent. He just put the spare ribs in his mouth and chewed and chewed. It was as if he was chewing a sweet and delicious candy, so sweet that he was reluctant to swallow it. After a barely warm meal, maybe afraid of disturbing me, he offered to leave on his own. And not long after he left, my phone received a text message. "Hello, Mr. Henry. The item you customized has been delivered. Welcome to cooperate with us again next time. Wish you a pleasant use." I put away the pen for signing and stared at the text message. Thinking about this item and the plot I had to follow tonight, I suddenly felt a headache. It was 9 o'clock at night. I dawdled my way home from the company. Even if I didn't want to follow the plot anymore, there was no way to avoid the scenes I had to act out. In the study, I opened the exquisitely and intactly packaged box, revealing the wooden long box inside. The wooden box was carved with patterns around it, luxurious and expensive. But as soon as the thing inside was revealed, it was simply disgusting. It was a leathery, shiny long whip with bells hanging from the end. Whenever it was waved, the sweet-sounding bells would cheer for its owner. I stroked the long whip, and the mechanical voice urged in my ear, "Please perform. Teach the submissive protagonist a lesson to relieve your inner anger." Dialogue Performance 1. Take it off. Dialogue Performance 2. Uncomfortable? This is what you deserve. Dialogue Performance 3. Can't take it anymore? Stay down. Just looking at the lines, it makes one's heart feel uneasy. But in reality, when the whip lands on William, there's only inescapable brutality. He just can't figure it out. He got married to the person he'd been secretly in love with for 10 years with a heart full of joy, only to get something cold and bloody in return. And in the eyes of me as set in the plot, I hate this face that resembles my first true love, and this body that's even more beautiful than my first true love's. I don't have the thought of loving someone for the sake of another. There's only the anger that makes me want to destroy all of this. No one can replace my first true love. He's the one and only in my heart. Tisk, scum. He could have not married him, but he insisted on bringing him back to hurt him. I put the whip into a wooden box to make it seem less shameful. Then, I took the wooden box and prepared to go downstairs to find William. The living room, under the brilliant chandelier, the fair and slender swan-like neck twists slightly. There seemed to be a blurry red mark on the edge of the mole at the back of William's neck. I walked towards what I saw, unconsciously frowning. What's wrong? Surprised by someone suddenly appearing behind him, William turned his head dumbly. After a moment, he spoke. "I don't know what's going on. The back of my neck is so itchy." I put down the wooden box and reached out to lift the clothes at his neck. What came into view were marks that were scratched red and slightly oozing blood. "Take it off," I said briefly, as I couldn't see clearly if there were any marks below. But as soon as the words came out, not only I was stunned, but William also lowered his head in embarrassment. His red ear tips, exposed to the air, turned from light to dark. The atmosphere became strange. Thinking it was because I didn't play out the whole plot well, I touched the back of his neck with a cold face. His thin back trembled, as if trying to shrink away. Before he could finish speaking, I interrupted. "Uncomfortable, William? Maybe it's the label of the new clothes rubbing today." No, I mean, the label of the clothes." He turned his head, realizing what he had said. His words were flustered, as if trying to cover something up. A blush crept onto his delicate face, making him look gorgeously alluring. My heart skipped a beat. In fact, I knew. He dressed up carefully and put on new clothes just to see me. He just wanted to show me his best side. I let my fingertips linger on the red mark, gently rubbing it, and my eyes dimmed slightly. "Didn't you deal with the discomfort in time? Serves you right. This is what you should bear. Take it off. Let me have a look." I added my own connecting words to the lines of the play. I withdrew my hand, and the scalding touch disappeared. After a moment, William uneasily pinched the corner of his clothes. He closed his eyes, raised his hand, and pretended to be calm as he slowly unbuttoned his shirt. Looking closely, his hand was trembling. He was shy and uneasy. It took him nearly 5 minutes to take off a simple shirt. I stood still behind him, watching him reveal his back, which was like a work of art. My gaze slid down and stopped at the small of his back where his shirt had fallen. I lightly pinched my fingertips, and my throat felt a bit itchy. No one knows better than me the smooth and alluring touch there. I've touched it millions of times. Must be an allergy. I'll go get the ointment. The itching feeling in my heart spread from the inside out, and I subconsciously ignored it. I turned around and walked to the cabinet where the first aid kit was placed, and took out the ointment for treating allergies. "Well, maybe I should do it myself," he said hesitantly, still a bit embarrassed. I unscrewed the ointment and squeezed out a small lump. I asked him rhetorically, "It's on your back. How can you apply it yourself?" His blushing face hadn't faded yet, and he conceded. "Well then, sorry to trouble you." The cool ointment was applied to the hot red marks. The man underneath straightened his back, and his body trembled slightly. As the ointment passed over the bleeding red marks, William couldn't hold back a soft moan. I lightened my strength. Suddenly, I thought the timing was just right. I could perfectly deliver the last line of the dialogue. So I put on a serious face and said in a low voice, "Can't take it anymore? Stay put. Otherwise, you'll dirty your clothes, mister." Henry thought he had misheard. William looked up blankly. "Ha!" I took a deep breath and adjusted my facial expression. Then I said nonchalantly, "It's nothing. All done. Go take a bath later. After that, I'll apply the ointment for you again." It's good that he didn't hear it. Saved me from having to repeat the line. Hearing that it was over, William quickly put on his shirt. He was afraid that I'd ask him to do something else that made him uncomfortable. He buttoned up his shirt and put on his coat in less than 30 seconds. He was like a completely different person from before. After tidying his clothes, his eyes casually landed on the wooden box on the sofa. He asked curiously, "What's this?" I wish he hadn't asked. It gave me a headache. The reason I went downstairs to find him was to give him this item. In the plot, the whip was used on him. Now, giving the whip to him and keeping it by his side, well, it's putting this thing to good use and fixing the bug. Anyway, there's no way I'm gonna whip him again. Waving a whip requires being careful not to hurt anyone and send them to the hospital. You have to control the force well. It's really technical and tiring, you know. But why didn't I think of such a perfect solution before? Must be because my brain isn't working well since I just awakened. Sitting quietly on the single sofa, I looked up and motioned, "This is for you. Open it and see if you like it." He looked surprised, not expecting it to be a gift for himself. His face beamed with pleasant surprise. "Thanks, When the wooden box was opened, the pitch-black whip inside seemed to scream of some kind of hobbyist's taste. He froze, his face turning deathly pale. He stuttered. For a long time but couldn't say anything. He was probably scared out of his wits, or maybe he was still trying to convince himself to accept what his crush liked. I said calmly, not teasing him anymore, "A custom-made cat teaser. Do you like it?" "Didn't you say you wanted to get a cat?" William asked cautiously. "A cat teaser?" He looked at the thing in the wooden box with a bit of suspicion. Then he looked up at me, seeing that I wasn't joking. He looked even more kitten-like than a cute kitten. His Adam's apple bobbed slightly, and he covered the smile at the corner of his mouth with his fist against his lips. I nodded. "Well, what else did you think it was?" William's face flushed instantly. He stammered, "And nothing. It's nice. It's a really beautiful cat teaser. Jingle, 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 jingle. Haha. The sound is nice too. The cat will surely like it. Haha." To show that he hadn't thought anything inappropriate, he held the handle of the whip and gently shook the bell. "As long as you like it." Leaning quietly against the back of the chair, I propped my forehead and looked at the person not far away who was still examining the whip. I caught a faint smell of residual ointment, and my thoughts drifted. So before, part of the red marks on his back was due to an allergy? I thought it was all. Over the next 3 days, I shed the burden of being fully committed and lazily delivered the lines I was supposed to say. I spent most of my rest time at home, painting with William and watching shows. Somehow, I revealed the otaku nature hidden in my genes and didn't feel like going out. I had James send me the documents that the group had processed tens of millions of times in electronic form, and I handled them skillfully. In order not to break Shursun's persona when we were apart. After finishing my work, I usually slept or just stared blankly in the lounge in the office. Now, there's no need for that. No matter what I do, the plot can't be changed. It will develop steadily according to the original setting. For example, right now, dusk is falling, and the glow of the sunset shines through the glass window onto me. I'm lounging lazily, reclining on a deck chair, flipping through documents, when I rarely hear William call out to me, "Daniel." He relaxes his body, trying to look at ease, and with a twinkle in his eyes, he holds his phone in front of me. "Is it okay?" On the phone screen, Matthew has sent a request to ask him to film an episode of a variety show. "Bro, I really can't figure out any special shooting content for the show My Daily Life. Can I come to your place as a guest and shoot an episode? I mean, using the visit to your home as the content. It won't take up your time for too long. Is that okay? You and brother Daniel just got married not long ago. I also want to come and see you. I've even come up with the title for the show. Surprising my brother's newlywed life." The dialogue box on the screen kept flickering and scrolling down. Matthew was still as talkative and cheerful as ever. Back then, in order to follow the person he liked. He resolutely, despite the dissuasion of William and his family, plunged into the entertainment industry. After a lot of ups and downs, the two finally got together and received blessings. And the reason I mistook him for my first true love from childhood was largely due to the sunny vibe he exuded. It was something gentle and shy William didn't have. And it was the light I wanted to grasp as I sank into the abyss. Is that not okay? Seeing that I didn't say anything for a long time, William nervously licked his lips. I placed my hand on his slender wrist and replied in a low voice, "It's okay." Agree to Matthew's request to secretly film his brother's newlywed life. This was a small climax set in the plot, and I had no reason to refuse. In the plot, Matthew didn't come at the agreed time but an hour earlier. The night before, William had been tormented by me, and the red marks on his neck hadn't had time to be covered up. The bruises and blood marks on his wrists were even more horrible to look at, and all of this was exposed in front of the filming crew. I let out a tired sigh, cursing myself under my breath. And upon getting my consent, William's lips curved up slightly. He was holding his phone and replying attentively. A few minutes later, he looked up and said with barely concealed delight, "Matthew said he was afraid of disturbing us early in the morning, so he'll come over to shoot at 9 the day after tomorrow." I glanced at his expression, trying to hold back his joy, and just said, thinking to myself, it's actually 8 the day after tomorrow. Suddenly, I sat up straight. So, the red marks and bruises on William in the plot. Don't I have to find an opportunity to do it quickly tomorrow? The next day, everything was as usual. It was 4:45 in the evening. In the open-style kitchen with an island counter, William was opening the fridge, picking out ingredients to make dinner. Due to the irresistible development of the plot, the live in Emma said something had happened at home in the afternoon and asked for a few days off. I picked up the coffee on the table and took a sip, then looked at the waist of William, who had his back to me in front of the fridge. Set off by the thin apron strings, that slender waist looked particularly beautiful. My gaze moved up. The neck at the collar was as white and porcelain, like as if it was delicate and soft. I swallowed the coffee in my mouth and suddenly didn't know how to start. I was absent-mindedly rubbing my fingertips against the cup wall, watching William cook and then eat. Seeing that Mr. William was about to get up and start clearing the dining table again, I took the bowls and chopsticks with a bit of guilt and said, "You go and rest. I'll take care of this." Mr. William gave me a surprised look. Seeing that I wouldn't take no for an answer, he obediently replied, "Okay, then I'll go wash some fruits." Amid the pattering sound of water, he stood on my left, carefully washing the grapes. His wrist, which could be encircled with one hand, was swaying. Before he knew it, I had grabbed his wrist and tightened my grip. Mr. William let out a puzzled puff of air, and his glass-like eyes met mine. My lips moved slightly, as if I wanted to say something but held back. In the end, I slowly let go of the slightly cold touch in my palm and said belatedly, "The water is a bit cold. Leave it. I'll wash them later." Mr. William tilted his head and stared at me quietly for a few seconds, then hesitated. "But I've already washed them. Should I take them out?" I turned my head awkwardly, nodded, and continued washing the dishes. How stupid of me. After cleaning up the post-meal mess, I accompanied Mr. William to watch an art painting appreciation program. Distracted, I stiffly stepped upstairs, struggling inwardly about what was going to happen later. Under the warm yellow bedroom light, William raised his hand to wipe his wet hair. As he moved, the blue silk pajamas revealed a glimpse of his snow-white, slender waist. I quickly averted my gaze in a fluster and went into the bathroom to wash up. In those tens of millions of scenarios in the past, I had never looked at William with an appreciative eye. As an awakened character in the book, I only regarded him as a soulless puppet. I adhered rigidly to the routine, whipped him to give him pain, then pretended to be affectionate and begged for his forgiveness to achieve world harmony. I took a deep breath, quickly finished washing up and came out, only to find William already lying in bed, drowsy. Wrapped in the mist from the bathroom, I turned off the light and got into bed. After 3 days of warm companionship, sharing the same bed, he seemed to have gotten somewhat used to the physical contact between us. I pulled him into my arms, my palm moving downwards, and I lowered my voice, asking nervously, "Is it okay, Maybe I could use hickeys instead. I wonder if that would work. This was the only way I could think of at the moment, on the premise of not hurting William. The person in my arms was quiet. Just when I thought he had fallen asleep, his stray hair brushed against my chin, and he nodded almost imperceptibly. The room was dim. I groped to cup William's face, and by the faint moonlight filtering through the curtains, I bent down and kissed his soft lips. The two hearts thumped loudly. When their lips met, it was as if sparks flashed in Mr. Henry's mind, and he was lost in a daze of passion. Ding dong. Ding dong. At 8 in the morning, the shrill doorbell rang. William was woken up by the doorbell. He nuzzled gently against Mr. Henry's neck a few times, reluctant to get up. The arm that stretched out from under the covers to search for the phone was covered with dense red marks, like red plum blossoms on snow. William's groggy, half-awake mind glanced at the time. 3 minutes past 8. He gently removed Mr. Henry's arm from around his waist. Feeling Mr. Henry trying to pull him back, he whispered, "It might be the lady who delivers the groceries. I'll go open the door for her." As he spoke, he got up, gasped slightly, and his body ached all over. He casually picked up the hanging bathrobe, put it on, tied it up, and walked out of the room. After the door closed behind his figure, Mr. Henry opened his clear eyes. He had already woken up at the first ring of the doorbell, but thinking about the plot where William was about to leave, he pretended to be asleep and ignored it. Present, Mr. Henry had only found a few bugs in the plot and didn't dare to resist the development of the plot. Once, when he had just awakened, he was naive. He thought he was the protagonist in the book and feared nothing. As a result, he was directly struck by a bolt of lightning. The plot was reset, and the characters in the plot seemed to lose a bit of liveliness and became more like puppets. Holy cow. Bro, what happened to you? Or, the 3D, like scream from downstairs clearly reached the bedroom upstairs. I sat up, rubbed my ears that were startled by the noise, then got up and walked into the bathroom to wash up. In the show My Daily Life, I only appeared briefly in the early stage. It was when I dragged William back to the room, ordered him to wear something he shouldn't and record until the end. Then I left a cold back view and went out to work. Oh no, I also gently greeted Matthew and belittled William in front of him. Please complete the performance. Belittle the main character show in front of the show. Line performance. He can't do anything right. He's not as good as you. You've had a hard time. The familiar mechanical voice appeared again. I frowned and looked at the words that appeared on the screen. Why didn't I think these lines were so insincere before? Footsteps came from the corridor outside the bedroom. I was quick-eyed and pulled the person into the room. William exclaimed in surprise. Daniel. I helped him rub his sore lower back a few times, then took out the ankle bracelet I'd prepared from my pocket. The delicate and small chain glistened under the refraction of light. If you didn't look carefully, it was completely inconspicuous. I had thought for a long time, something that shouldn't be worn on formal occasions could only be used as a substitute. I squatted down, held up his right foot, and said in a formal tone, "Shall I put it on for you?" William stood there, slightly leaning against the door panel in a white bathrobe. Looking up from below, he was like a pure angel in the backlight, having fallen to the mortal world. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's, and the tips of his ears were burning hot. Hum. I lowered my eyes and put the anklet on properly. It looks beautiful. Don't take it off easily. Afraid that my words might be too blunt, I added soothingly, "You might lose it." After this scene, William went into the dressing room to change, and I went out to get ready for my last appearance. In the living room, there were more than a dozen people, including the director and the cameraman facing Matthew. Matthew was showing them around with a curious look. The sharp-eyed director saw me first. I waved at him, not wanting to be on camera. In the plot, my shots were just a few lines and a back view. "Brother Daniel." Matthew quickly came up to greet me, and the sensible cameraman moved the camera lens down to avoid capturing my face. I relaxed my brows and fixed my eyes on the face that resembled William's by 6 or 7 parts. "Good morning, Matthew," Matthew teased. Good morning, Brother Daniel," You seem to be having a great time. I shifted my expression slightly, not eager to continue this topic, and said, you guys have fun. I'm gonna head to work now. Oh, by the way, your brother, he can't do anything right. He's not as good as you. Thanks for your trouble. Matthew paused for a moment, then immediately got the point. I know. It's my brother's first time recording a show, so he must be really nervous. Don't worry. Besides, he's my own brother. Come on. Of course I have to take his feelings into account. No PDA, Daniel, looking at his innocent and guileless face. I nodded helplessly. Anyway, I said all the lines I needed to. Let him think whatever he wanted. I said goodbye to Matthew, got in the car and headed for the company. Later, I still had to complete a scene where I remotely controlled William. On the screen, William was bundled up, wearing a turtleneck sweater. Matthew was bending over to check the rose bushes that William had newly transplanted in the greenhouse a few days ago. William looked gentle and handed Matthew a cute little watering can. Wanna give it a try? Matthew took it excitedly and couldn't wait to water from top to bottom. The scene was warm and harmonious. Suddenly, as if he thought of something, he asked with a smile, brother, has Daniel bullied you these days? As soon as the words were out, William's cheeks flushed bright red, his eyes full of shyness. He shook his head. No, maybe feeling rather embarrassed. He took the small water bottle from Matthew's hand. Then he changed the subject. What about you? How have you been lately? The two of them chatted back and forth. When they got excited later, it was all Matthew chattering non-stop while William listened quietly. I watched William's performance on the screen, and it was completely in line with the plot development. When asked by Matthew about his married life, William was embarrassed and his cheeks were tinged with a faint pink. Watching them move from the greenhouse to the studio, my eyes were dark and unclear. Please complete the performance. Warn the protagonist show not to paint and prevent him from shining in the show. Line performance 1. Don't paint. Line performance 2. Are you going to leave Matthew alone on the side? Line performance 3. Get it straight. Whose show is this? Line performance 4. William, if you don't want to keep feeling uncomfortable, just be a backdrop. Glancing at the words floating in the void, an unknown emotion welled up in my heart. It was a bit tingly and numb, as if I'd been pricked by a needle, and I couldn't help but frown. Buzz. William's phone on the table was vibrating. When he saw who was calling, his eyes lit up instantly. He whispered to Matthew, I'm going to answer a call. Matthew nodded blankly. William quickened his pace, and in a few steps, he disappeared from the screen. I unconsciously tightened my grip on the phone. Hello, Daniel. What's up? A clear, pure voice came from the receiver, like a summer night's breeze. I was stunned for half a second, then got back to the point. No painting. On the phone, there was a quiet breathing sound, and the clear, gentle voice had no questions. It replied obediently. Okay. It felt like a feather had tickled my heart, and I couldn't help but chuckle. So obedient. Aren't you going to ask me why? William's voice carried a bit of shyness. I know what? You're caring about me, he said softly, with an inexplicable tenderness. I was startled, my pupils slightly contracting. Caring about him? The few days we spent together weren't as brutal and bloody as before. Those memories kept swirling in my mind. Suddenly, it dawned on me, right? From his perspective, after we got married, I never said a harsh word to him, and I, who used to be a workaholic, actually had time to stay at home with him, cutting out all that nonsense. Isn't it like marrying the person you've had a crush on for 10 years, and then having a sweet, happy married life, getting what you've always wanted? I stood up, my eyes looking up at the fake blue sky. The lines I'd prepared got stuck in my throat, and I couldn't say them for a moment. Daniel, yeah, I'm here. Is there anything else to tell me? Matthew's in a hurry. After considering the lines I should say, I softened my voice and said, okay, go ahead. It's my fault for leaving Matthew alone. William, last night, if you don't want to suffer anymore, don't mess around with Matthew. Just be a quiet backdrop and record comfortably until it's over. After all, you should know whose show this is. Don't overexert yourself. After carefully saying those lines, no warning sound came, and the sky was still blue, not looking like it was about to change. On the phone call, William said a few more words than usual. Okay, I'll take good care of myself. You don't have to worry. Come back early. I'll be waiting for you. Beep. The call ended, concealing that strange, ambiguous sentiment. Beep. System detecting a significant increase in the emotional plot of misunderstanding. Is there any violation or deviation? System detecting. The book's plot is correct. Lines. Detecting multiple increases in the lines of the main character's dominant and submissive roles. Beep. The increase in lines is normal. Detection is correct. Please complete the performance. Dissatisfied with the performance of the submissive main character, pinch the jaw as a punitive warning. Performance line 1. I'm very dissatisfied with your performance. Line interpretation 2. Hold it. ZZZZ. System is forcibly upgrading. The noisy mechanical sound stopped, and I rubbed my temples. What's going on? A sudden upgrade process? But this kind of situation has happened before. I guess the readers stopped reading, jumped to another interface, and went to the comments section to throw a tantrum? Perfect. I can slack off on the lines that haven't been fully displayed. Tonight, I just need to finish the last scene. Tomorrow, William will wake up and leave, starting the chasing wife in the crematorium plot. But thinking of that clear and mellow voice on the phone call just now, I couldn't help but lose myself in thought. William, would he really leave? At 7 o'clock, Matthew left with the program crew. I got home right on time and happened to see the car they were in driving away. William had just closed the door. He didn't expect me to come back at this time. His smiling eyes suddenly lit up, and he accidentally missed a step. In an instant, I quickly stepped forward and hugged him into my arms. Be careful. William curled his fingers and murmured, Sorry, your performance really disappoints me. Thinking the timing was right, I awkwardly said the lines. Then, I directly grabbed him by the back of his knees, picked him up, and walked into the house to cover up this less than perfect act. William was placed on the soft sofa. Feeling a bit strange, he turned his head and asked, Are you angry? Do I seem like someone who gets angry easily? Taking a deep breath, I opened the candy I had prepared in my pocket. With a headache, I said the last line, Suck on it. Ha! Although William didn't understand, he did as he was told. Meeting his extremely confused gaze, I said helplessly, It's nothing. He nodded with a slight hesitation and defused the situation, saying, Matthew said he'll send over a cat. It's the kitten from his agent sister's place. And he said, that cat teaser doesn't really look like a cat teaser. He'll prepare a set of cat supplies and send them over together. I never expected that he actually showed Matthew the whip, mistaking it for a cat teaser. I let out a silent sigh and poked his cheek, which was slightly puffed out from holding the candy. It feels like I've sighed more in these few days than in the previous tens of millions of times. What if I said that's not a cat teaser, but what you think it is, and it's meant to be used on you? What would you do? His mouth, which was holding the candy, stopped moving. He was as motionless as a goofy goose. I continued to ask with great interest, What? Scared. He pressed his lips tightly together, looked up, and our eyes met. His clear eyes reflected my figure. He said seriously, If you like it, you can. In an instant, the fire in my chest spread. My Adam's apple bobbed. I leaned down and kissed her. William, why are you still so silly? That love that throws caution to the wind. Even if I'm covered in wounds, I'm still willing to turn back and rush into the fire like a moth. I made up my mind on a whim to be impulsive just this once. I said hoarsely, with determination, Tomorrow, let's go on a honeymoon. Let's give it a try. If it can't be rewritten, then reset after being struck by lightning. Refresh it again for this fool. It's not a bad idea. Looking down at the fool's blank and innocent face, the more I wanted to tease him. However, the fool, for once, pushed me away bravely and said something that made me even more frustrated. Blushing, Don't look at me like that. I'll give it to you tonight, okay? What a silly guy. In a flash, I replied with an ambiguous, oh. I got up and walked towards the kitchen, ready to show off my cooking skills to my new wife. And the person behind me thought I was angry again, so he followed me closely. He cooed softly, Don't be angry. How about we do it after dinner? While I was teasing my wife, I suddenly noticed, above the silent void, the system finished upgrading. The mechanical sound muted and words started to flicker. System upgrade completed. Under strong requests from readers, the work is in the process of transformation. The book type of misunderstanding is being changed. The book world has been successfully changed. Misunderstanding tags pure love, sweet story, redemption, misunderstanding resolved, happy ending. Reader comments have been reset. Please readers actively participate in commenting. The main characters, top and bottom, will also check the top 10 popular comments every week. I was startled, almost thinking I was hallucinating. It wasn't until I clearly saw the words, misunderstanding resolved, and happy ending, that an overwhelming, surreal joy suddenly seized me. I led him to the couch and, for the first time, started to calmly and voluntarily tell that absurd story about the system, the reader comments, and the original direction this world was headed. I told him that those cold and hurtful actions weren't entirely out of my own will, told him about the torment in my heart every time I saw him get hurt, and also told him the system had changed, and we were free. William listened quietly, starting from shock, then to realization, and finally his eyes slightly reddened at the corners. He never interrupted me, just held my hand tightly. After I finished speaking, he was silent for a long time. Then he looked up, his eyes bright, a bit watery, yet wearing an incredibly bright smile. So, his voice was a bit nasal, but unusually cheerful. You don't really hate me, and all that was forced by the plot? I've never hated you. I looked into his eyes earnestly. Suddenly, he lunged at me, threw his arms around my neck, and like a little animal that had finally found its home, he choked back sobs in my ear and said, "That's great, you jerk. You made me sad for so long." I patted his back, letting him release the pent-up grievances. In my heart, there was a sense of steadiness and calm I'd never felt before. The next day, we really embarked on a honeymoon trip. Without a specific destination, we just held hands and went to an island famous for its sunshine and beaches. The sea was blue, the sky was clear, and the white sand was fine. William ran barefoot on the beach, turned back, and waved at me with a smile. The sunlight gilded him with a golden edge. The way he threw himself at me was no longer like a moth to a flame, but like a tired bird returning to its nest, finally finding its place to rest. At night, we stayed in a wooden house facing the sea. The sea breeze was gentle, blowing the white gauze curtains. Leaning in my arms, William looked at the waves glistening under the starry sky outside the window and said softly, "This place is wonderful. If you like it, we can come here often." I kissed the top of his head. He turned around to face me, his eyes clear and warm, full of complete trust and love. "As long as you're with me, anywhere is fine." Our story had just begun, and there were countless sweet chapters in the future waiting for us to write with our own hands.